Today, I'm here to talk about a man whose hate defined a generation. A man who had so much hate in his heart that he impressed the devil himself. That's right, the god dang devil. No lie, I had to split this video into 3 chapters. He's just that bad. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you Colonel H. Stinkmeaner, and this is his story. Now, before we get into our story, I must first tell you about the focus of our video, the N-word moment. And I only say N-word moment because we're not a minute into the video and I don't want YouTube to demonetize me. You see, an N-word moment is when a black man disrespects another black man and the disrespected black man loses all sense of rationality, aka they ready to Swiss cheese somebody. And this is basically the premise of this entire video. So Robert is coming out of the mall and he just got some new shoes, some new Air Force Ones. But as he's walking to the car, he was not ready for what was approaching him. The greatest hater in history, Colonel H. Stinkmeaner. You see, Stinkmeaner grew up a hater. As a teenager, he hated anything peaceful, and his hate was so powerful that the only time this nigga was happy was when he went blind from cancer. God dang, he the god of hatred. Honestly, he was only supposed to live for about 3 years after they told him he was blind, before he finally kicked the goddamn bucket. But this man lived to be an old man, and for whatever reason, is behind the wheel of a car, even though he's blind. Whoever gave this nigga a license locked them up too. So when Robert is walking to his car, apparently he's parked in Stinkmeaner's spot. Because when Stinkmeaner pulls up, he tries to back in, but he hits Robert's car. Mind you, this nigga can't see. So after he backs into Robert's car, he stops and thinks to himself, I know ain't nobody in my spot. There's a handicap spot. And then proceeds to back into the car again. And now, Robert is about to be put into a nigga moment. So Stinkmeaner gets into the car and starts to go off. According to Stinkmeaner, Robert is all kinds of bitch ass niggas. And then when Robert asks him for insurance, he tells Robert he better have ass whooping insurance cause he about to lay that man out. And Stinkmeaner just continues to go off, ending every single sentence with bitch ass nigga and putting emphasis on the bitch ass nigga. But what happens next is where he really sets it off, cause he takes a whiff of the air and says, I smell new shoes. And then he steps on Robert's brand new Air Force Ones. Oh nah. Do you know how disrespectful it is to step on another man's brand new forces? To leave a black ass mark on the man's forces? Bro, you'll get Swiss cheese in some places over that. So Robert, like any sensible man, is about to beat Stinkmeaner's ass over stepping on his shoes. And when he cocks back to punch him, Stinkmeaner weaves that shit and Robert falls on the ground and Stinkmeaner starts whooping that nigga's ass. And the funniest part about all this is Riley won't shut up about how Robert is getting beat up by a blind man. So after the fight, Robert is getting dragged by everybody about how he got beat by Stinkmeaner's blind ass. They even had this nigga on CNN, national news, and goddamn Telemundo getting beat by Stinkmeaner's blind old ass. So obviously, Robert gotta get it back in blood. So he goes and sets up the rematch with Stinkmeaner and starts his training art to beat the blind assassin, because Huey done put it in his head that Stinkmeaner is a blind samurai master or some shit, but Huey couldn't have been more wrong. Because when we get to the night of the fight, Stinkmeaner is sitting there talking all this crazy shit and starts blindly dancing around the arena. And that's when Huey finally realizes that this nigga just got lucky. But as he's trying to tell Robert to stop, Robert starts whooping that nigga ass. I know I said he was about to get it back in blood, but Robert actually killed this nigga and sent him to the afterlife. And while this should have been the end of the nigga moments, this is only like a third of our story, because not even death is enough to stop Stinkmeaner's nigga moment. And now I present to you the return of Stinkmeaner. You see, one thing about a hater is it fuels them. And Stinkmeaner was the epitome of hate. And as he's in literal hell, beating the hell out of demons, the devil acknowledges him and sends him back so he can get his vengeance on Robert. Bruh, I couldn't believe it while I was watching this either. So now we're back on Earth, and Tom has just been engaged in a nigga moment. And for reference, a nigga moment is the perfect moment for a black man to get possessed by a hateful spirit, i.e. Stinkmeaner. And what happens next is what I gotta classify into my Hall of Fame ass whoopings. Because Stinkmeaner takes over Tom's body, jumps in the air, and kicks this nigga in the chest with both feet. And then as the man is laying on the ground, he tells this nigga to eat a dick after he almost caved the man's heart in. Man, hell nah. So Tom pops back into control and heads into court like his body didn't almost end this man's life, but Stinkmeaner already got control of him. He just in the tutorial phase right now. So Tom is in court, and I gotta take a second to talk about how this old lady who stole a nigga car and wallet just to crash that thing in the store showed up to court with a smile on her face. She gotta be Stinkmeaner wife or something. So when Tom walks up to the bench, Stinkmeaner pops back in and has a fuck your couch moment. And now Stinkmeaner is past the tutorial phase and he is now on level 1. He's a literal demon. We are in dangerous territory because right after this court fiasco, he takes Tom's body home to Tom's wife and he puts on the devious eyes, and oh my God, y'all, he claps Tom's wife.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
So while Stinkmeaner is over there clapping Tom's wife, Robert is over here on the toilet.
What's up, fuckers?
Oh, thank God. Stinkmeaner pulls up on Robert like he in The Shining and stops him from doing whatever he was doing on that goddamn toilet. So Stinkmeaner breaks into the bathroom with an axe and tries to tomahawk Robert with the axe in his goddamn house, and then starts beating Robert's ass, telling him to say his name. And as Robert is screaming, this man looks at him and says, "My mama didn't name me, what's my fucking name?" Bruh, the only reason Stinkmeaner was old and blind was to put this man's true power under wraps, because the only way to stop this man was to literally jump him. And even that didn't work. He was over there whooping all three of they ass like it was nothing. But to be honest, this nigga was fighting literal demons. So what do you expect? But luckily, Riley is a real YN, cause he starts busting Stinkmeaner with all the expensive trinkets and knocks him out. And so they end up tying him up in Riley's bed. Why Riley's bed? I don't know. But let me remind y'all about how much of a dickhead Robert is, because his date shows up to the door and this nigga decides to have a whole dinner date while this possessed demon that is trying to kill them is tied to a bed upstairs. And when Stinkmeaner wakes up, the man goes crazy. Listen, he was calling this man everything but a child of God. He even said that this nigga has a vagina and a pussy, which I could have swore was the same goddamn thing, but I'm gonna just let Stinkmeaner have it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one man that can exorcise this goddamn demon, and that is Uncle Ruckus. So Uncle Ruckus walks in and places the most racist weapons on the table. I don't even want to show it because I was like, how racist is this nigga to just be carrying this around? So Ruckus goes up there and sees that there is powerful niggatry at work. And when he sees Tom possessed by Stinkmeaner, he pulls out a book, holds it up, talking about read, nigga, read. And y'all, this makes Stinkmeaner float off the goddamn ground. Bro, it is Black History Month. Martin Luther King did not die for this. So they start beating Stinkmeaner's ass for hours until Huey finally realizes that the only way to truly end a nigga moment is with peace. And he uses Ruckus's hate for niggas and Stinkmeaner's hate for anything to multiply negative energy against itself and create the reverse curse technique, aka peace, which ends up sending Stinkmeaner back to hell. And this was finally the end of the nigga moment.
Got him!
The final chapter.
What's good, nigga?
Ladies and gentlemen, in this final chapter, I am here to tell you how Stinkmeaner transcended the end of his own nigga moment just to make it go even longer using a clone. You see, Stinkmeaner cloned himself from an ad on blackpeoplemeet.com with the sole purpose of messing with Robert even after he was dead and gone. He even wrote him a note. Dear clone Stink, go fuck with that nigga Robert. Sincerely, OG Stink. P.S. I gets money. So Robert is walking out of the mall and sees that his car got backed into again, and Stinkmeaner was the culprit. But this time, he was waiting there just to tell Robert he did it and call him the biggest bitch ass nigga again. So Robert squares up ready to fight Stinkmeaner, but clone Stinkmeaner is the actual blind samurai that Huey dreamed about, cause he was weaving this man and proceeds to beat his ass while everybody is around recording him. And once again, everybody is talking about how Robert got his ass whooped. At this point, the man is probably on WorldStar. So Stinkmeaner calls Robert on Skype, fucking Skype, and tells him that if he ain't that much of a pussy, he'll show up in the parking lot for a rematch. So Robert starts training with Yoda. Hey man, is this just fucking filler? So Robert shows up to the parking lot for his rematch with Stinkmeaner. But here's the thing. Robert called the police and he refuses to fight Stinkmeaner because, well, he too old for that. And so the police come and arrest Stinkmeaner. And at this point, basically, he's a bitch. But here's the thing. Onceler bailed Stinkmeaner out just because he wants to set up a pay-per-view boxing match between him and Stinkmeaner. And so Robert starts to train. But as he's training, he transforms into something. He embraces the dark side, the hate. He starts to turn into Stinkmeaner, the very thing he was trying to destroy. So the night of the fight, Robert is basically a clone of Stinkmeaner and proceeds to beat the ever-living shit out of the man until he snaps back and tells Stinkmeaner, if I let you live, will you leave me alone? And basically, Stinkmeaner's clone spends the rest of his days on the sidewalk outside of Robert's house every day at 6 o'clock talking shit to Robert while they trying to eat dinner. And while this may be the end of the nigga moment and the end of my Black History special this year, let me take this time to say, fuck you, Judge YouTube. You can't get a real nigga out of here. And last but not least, subscribe before I let this thing go. Happy Black History Month. Roll my music.